Now that you're all up to speed on your local forecast, let's see what's making headlines in Weather Network News. I'm Nicole Karkic. It's Saturday, July 2nd. In southern Ontario right now, we have a humidex advisory in place for southwestern Ontario, feeling like the mid-40s for us around Windsor. We also have a smog advisory in place that includes the city of Toronto, even towards Barrie and east towards Kingston. Very hot, humid, sticky conditions are potentially threatening for people who are outside doing any physical activity. If you want to avoid heat stroke, stay tuned to this story right now from Natalie Thomas on just that.
Well, it is the Canada Day long weekend, and it is expected to be a very hot and humid one for parts of Ontario and Quebec. So we brought along Robin Ashby from St. John Ambulance to give us some tips. Now, basically, Robin, we know it's going to be hot and humid. What if people have outdoor plans this weekend? What should they be doing differently?
Well, it's not a question of doing it differently. It's a question maybe of doing it a little bit better. And plan for the heat. Make sure they're well rested, well nourished, well hydrated. Plan to take some breaks from the heat, and maybe plan on an activity where they can cool off, like a beach activity or a water park, something like that.
Now, we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that there is a big difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Can you tell us about the differences?
Yeah, and these are very important differences. Heat exhaustion, which is serious, the casualty will present like they're in shock. So weak rapid pulse, shallow breathing, confused and anxious, cold, wet skin. That's really a big key, because in heat exhaustion, there's actually heat stroke, there's actually two types. You can have classical heat stroke, where the casualty is going to present with probably pretty paper dry skin. And then you can have exertional heat stroke, where the casualty still has some resources left, so they still might be moist, but very hot to the touch, like surprisingly warm. Again, headachy, maybe the nausea and vomiting. And heat stroke is life-threatening. It's very serious. It should be treated seriously.
And so if someone is up at the cottage this weekend and it gets hot and they spend too much time out in the sun, what do you recommend they do if they have one of these symptoms?
Well, the first thing is immediately get out of direct sunlight. Cool them off the best way you can. Immersion is probably the best way. Hose them down, put them in a bathtub, and run cool water around them. Monitor them. And certainly if they're really hot to the touch, this would be a 911 call.
Okay, thanks a lot, Robin. Some tips for the long weekend, and back to you in the studio.